Okay, so welcome everyone. My name is Francesca Mangano. I'm a Master's in Social Work intern here on the Crossroads for Hope team. I'm joined here by our presenter today, Suzanne Levy. She's a hospice liaison and nurse at Compassionate Care Hospice. I'm so excited to welcome you all to the last session of our three-part Planning for Peace of Mind educational series. The purpose of this program as a whole is to bring awareness to the available resources for advanced planning, equip individuals with tools for communicating their end-of-life wishes, and empower all people to take control of their own future, health, and well-being. Now, we each have our own unique experiences, wishes, and beliefs around end-of-life. So this is by no means a one-size-fits-all process. But everyone deserves the right to self-determination, autonomy, and dignity. And as an organization, we believe that by destigmatizing these really difficult conversations and providing information about both the legal and the medical processes, we can bring you just one step closer to fulfilling those fundamental rights. Please note also that in the next few days, we'll be sending out recordings of all the presentations to all individuals that have registered, along with a Planning for Peace of Mind resource guide. And this guide will offer some helpful information and handouts about the topics we've discussed throughout the past few weeks and today. To those of you who may not be familiar with our organization, Crossroads for Hope is an independent 501c3 nonprofit organization located in Bedminster, New Jersey. Our network of support embraces all people touched by cancer, the diagnosed, and their loved ones, providing access to resources and evidence-based programs of support, education, well-being, and hope offered free of charge. Our vision is to be a safe space to turn to first for restoring one's whole being and improve the life of people with cancer and their families beyond the diagnosis. This last session of our series is in partnership with Compassionate Care Hospice. The presentation today will focus on how to facilitate the difficult discussions around end-of-life care. Feel free to drop any questions or comments you have in the Q&A box or the chat box, and we'll be sure to get them to you at the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Suzanne, I will hand it off to you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for giving some time to yourselves to educate yourselves today. I'm very grateful for this opportunity. I have been a passionate supporter of hospice since my early days in nursing school. In 1982 was when I graduated, and bringing you my original book, who inspired me greatly, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who wrote the first premier compassionate journal on handling end-of-life care. So this is definitely an antique now, but it's something I've cherished my whole life. And I don't know how many people can find a sacred calling and be able to do the job that they love so much. And I am every single day so grateful. So in having the difficult decisions, and many times it can start with a physician, and the physician that's taking care of you or your loved one. I often work very closely with them to facilitate conversations. I also let the physicians know that I'm part of their team, that I will never take a patient from them if they're referring to us, and we will work together and give updates and work as a team. My role is to help make the transition for you as comfortable as possible. Your goals certainly are my goals. I listen very intently, but everybody has a different need, which is why when we approach our patients and families with a conversation in the dignity of your home or in the facility or in the hospital room, it's not just a list of what we do. I want to listen to hear what's important to you. So the coordination of your goals, very, very important, something we focus very highly on. Sometimes the importance of having a conversation is sadly too late. The saddest thing for me is having the patient that came on to hospice too late. And sometimes in the end, we're struggling to put everything in place, and patient passes before we can do that. I encourage you to open the conversations in your family. If I can help facilitate anything, it is my pleasure. But sometimes the best question to ask the patient is, what do you want? Okay, so please remember that. So thinking about those possibilities before an emergent situation occurs would be a gift you would give the loved one, a gift you give yourself, your children. It's not an easy subject. It's not an easy conversation to have, but my support is there for you. And it's okay to acknowledge that as well. So earlier discussions, bringing that patient on earlier reduces a lot of the stress of all of this. I often hope that people will be open to the beauty of hospice. So there are some misconceptions. Hospice is not only for the end of life, it's for a diagnosis of 6 months or less. I am very proud to tell you that we've had patients come off hospice and get better. And I often see a beautiful rally of the patient at home because the comfort is there. Hospice includes several benefits, and one of them being a liaison to supervise your care. Also, pain and symptom management, coordination of care with your loved ones, family education, emotional and spiritual support. A social worker is present and part of your care team, a spiritual support being a chaplain, and all of your medication, your supplies. If we need to support you with durable medical equipment, that is all included, and it's 100% covered. In addition, a nurse's aide will visit. I can't promise dates and times at my original intake because I never want to overstep myself, but that is also part of this beautiful benefit. You would have a nurse's aide that would visit 5 times a week, about an hour and a half each visit. So when we have open and transparent communication, certainly about illness and end of life, again, I ask you to ask that question: what do you wish for? What do you want? But this way we increase trust in our family. We allay the fears, any misconceptions. We recognize both the patient and the family priorities and what you want. And many times having that extra support within the home eases the burden. Many times we have families that are busy and active and don't have the time that they need, and we're able to support you fully in taking care of that patient. I also have referrals for private agencies. If you go on hospice, you can certainly have, in addition to your care, it's perfectly okay to have a private nurse or aide support your care as well. So I just wanted to reiterate how in this supportive care and comfort, we focus on the quality of life within a diagnosis of 6 months or less. And some of these conversations and the steps that you can take are highlighted on this slide. To acknowledge the conversation, I always begin with, I know this is a difficult conversation, but we have to have it. And I promise you that I will make this comfortable for you. You can point out the importance and the purpose to identify your goals, your care goals, and your end of life wishes, and to certainly develop a plan to communicate your priorities. And I suggest a notebook, write down your thoughts, write down your wishes, and that way we can keep the conversation open. Some of the conversation starters we would suggest, and this is taken from the Conversation Project, to begin quietly, I need your help with something. Or can you and I have a conversation about how you want to proceed? or I was thinking about what happened to so and so, and it made me think that it's important to share this with each other as a family now. You may be able to say, if you're the patient, even though I'm okay now, I just want you to be prepared and to know what my wishes are. And can we talk about some things to matter to me? And will you help me think about my future? I always say we make plans and God laughs. This is a good time to think about what you need to address in your heart, in your soul, what you need to address to feel more prepared. And most importantly, to keep your physician, your care team in the loop of that as well. So to reiterate, we have the coordination of all medical supplies. We have medication management. We have nursing and nurses' aid visits, and we have support through social work, counseling, and chaplaincy services. On the durable medical equipment side, what's covered would be a hospital bed, wheelchair, walker, commode, over the bed tray table. Sometimes it can be a little difficult to bring in a large electric hospital bed into the family home or into the living room to make that patient as accessible as possible. I always try to comfort my patients and families by telling them that the ability to raise the back of that bed electrically makes the breathing process easier, and it's easier on the family and the patient, and that always seems to allay some fears as well. Oxygen certainly is a comfort, a great comfort to the patient, and that is something we would provide. And again, all of this beautiful care is 100% Medicare covered, and if the patient is Medicaid covered as well. If you choose to have your hospice care in a facility, we can work very closely with the facility as well. There are also hospice homes. There's a very well-known one in New Jersey and Scotch Plains, the Center for Hope Hospice. I can't say enough good things about these hospices because I always say there are so many good ones, but there's only one Suzanne. So this is my sacred gift. And I am just very, very honored that I'm able to pass this on and pass on the knowledge to you. Francesca, would you have any other questions on the board? May I answer anything?
Not that we have so far, but I'm wondering, I think there's a slide a few back about just some of the kind of values and questions to be thinking about. I think it's a few back if you want to just. This one. Yep. I think maybe what are some of the things to be thinking about? What are those decisions?
Again, the notebook is always good to take down your notes and write down your priorities. Sometimes we can let nature take its course, but we can make plans and God laughs sometimes. So when we allow that to happen, at least we're prepared. There are certain things that we would look for in end of life care. We're able to assess that very carefully. So that is a priority. And how important to you to ask you your quality of life. There is nothing better than a patient being in his or her home with grandchildren around and the comfort of a beautiful bedroom and a comfy couch and blankets that means something in terms of comfort and quality. And then, our beliefs, our traditions, our ability to have perhaps a holiday in the home. I sometimes ask my physicians, who can they think of that perhaps would not be here by the next holiday? And that always gets that conversation rolling. But, to the ability to have a beautiful holiday celebration within your home and have the best care in addition would be a wonderful thing. Living as long as possible, quality of life, what is your quality of life? What do you see that to be? One of the questions would be being as independent as possible. Now, you can be on hospice and you can go to the emergency room if you wish. This is America. You have many, many choices in life. Please don't ever feel that you are locked in. If you get better, you can go off hospice. The only call I wish you would make would be the 911 before you call an ambulance or before your family calls to go to the hospital. I would hope that you would call our nursing triage. We're available 24/7. Make that call first. There are a little bit of paperwork because we have to take you off hospice to let you go to the hospital, be treated, and then come back. Sadly, I had a patient that will stay with me for a long time that went to the doctor on a Friday and continued to decline. By Friday evening at sundown, he was really declining. And when the ambulance came, they were running out of oxygen for him. And my ability to get oxygen there, because it was after business hours, was impeded. And I just suggested to do the right thing from my heart to send him to the emergency room where he stayed overnight. And then in the morning, I was praying that he would make it and I would be able to bring him home. But God had other plans. And to pass in the hall of the emergency room was not one of them. So this is a perfect example how perhaps with earlier pre-planning, we could have made this a much better passing. So comfort, a misconception is the use of morphine in hospice care. Hospice does not overdose patients on morphine. All that we want to do is manage your symptoms and keep you as comfortable as possible. The oxygen, even though can be a little uncomfortable, the nasal cannulas, honestly, it just makes the entire process better. So being able to be with your family and friends would be a beautiful one as well, to be free of your physical limitations, to be mentally alert and competent, to write down all these things so that you can express your wishes is a perfect way to start these conversations. And then, avoiding expensive care, avoiding that stay in a facility, avoiding that stay in the hospital, being alone, to have your family, your loved ones, your friends, your animals rally around you, the ability to play beautiful music, watch good movies. These are all quality of life issues that I think would make such a difference. And I'm hoping you'll understand where I'm coming from, and that when the time comes, you can have these conversations. But my big opener is always, I know it's uncomfortable, but let's have it. Let's have that conversation. So, some of the myths would be that traditional medicine is not allowed in hospice. That's an untrue. Managing your pain and symptoms is definitely something that we pride ourselves on. We don't use morphine to speed up death. In fact, we watch that very, very carefully, and we work with the family. We work with the patient, and that's why it's so important to find out through assessment what the patient's needs are. The fact that hospice care is expensive is another misconception. Again, it's 100% covered under Medicare. And if you are a private insurance patient younger than Medicare age, we will work with you. Many of the plans offer supportive hospice care with no deductible. Again, I can't speak blanketly for everybody, but our business liaisons are there for you to answer any questions as well. We also, as Compassionate Care Hospice, have a long-standing wish to take care of every patient, and there is a charitable side to the business of medicine. You don't have to give up your regular doctor. You can keep your attending physician. You can also choose our hospice physician. The only detail that has to be said, again, this is an uncomfortable conversation, but if you choose your own physician to communicate with and manage your care, if in the end, if we have a loss, that physician has to sign the death certificate. So sometimes if families are looking to bury a loved one as soon as possible, that can be difficult because I have to certainly chase down that physician. I am a big communicator. I'm sure you can tell that by now. I always work with the family physician. I always embrace if the family would like to have their own personal physician and not our hospice physician. I will work with you. I will do anything that you would want me to do with that. And once you choose hospice, there's no turning back. I told the story this morning of a beloved physician of mine that I've known for 30 years. And he went on hospice, got better, and came off. And I hope we never have to have the conversation again, but it's a beautiful thing. You know, you can always go back to your existing life, and it's a pleasure of mine. So my goal would be to let you know that I'm here for you. Francesca will post both of my numbers, which are available to you 24/7. You know, the ultimate goal, honestly, is not a good death, but a good life, you know, all the way to the end. So a good life to a good death. And I do think that, for example, your mother brought you into this world. She was there for your first breath. How dignified and how wonderful it is for you to be able to support your parents, your mother, at the end of her life, for her very last breath. And that's certainly why I do what I do. Any questions?
Yeah, there are a few questions, and I also wonder if you just click the right arrow a few times. We have her number up there, and just some information here about Compassionate Care, which is where Suzanne works.
Here I am. I sleep with my phones and I am often used as a conversation starter. I am here to educate anyone that I can for the misconceptions. And most importantly, if I can bring comfort to a daily life, that is my goal.
And do you just mind going back a few just to look at some of the tips? I know that just facilitating these conversations, and again, there's no one size fits all, but just some tips for, I think it's one, yep, this one.
Yes.
I think just some tips in terms of communicating this. And Suzanne, I'm sure you're familiar and follow a lot of
Yes.
these components when you start your conversations.
Oh, I love the notebook idea that I gave you, and to even write a letter to your loved one that would explain what you're thinking. And this is not the Ten Commandments. You can always change your vision. You don't have to talk about everything in the first conversation. And you know, to have patience. Some humans need time. Some patients are afraid. And if we can allay that fear, then we've done our job. And if you're looking to have this conversation, you know, you don't have to lead the whole conversation. Sometimes silence is golden, and to listen. And sometimes in the comfort of the silence opens up a whole new conversation as well. You know, family and friends, and sometimes we do disagree. Sometimes misconceptions cause disagreements. So most importantly, you have at the end of this talk ammunition to be as perfectly proactive as you can be. And just remember, hospice is for a diagnosis of 6 months or less. If you're in a facility, you can have skilled nursing care. Sadly, you cannot have both. So the decision would have to be made to like stop skilled nursing billable care under Medicare, Medicaid for wound care, for example. The patient could also have a pneumonia or a severe sepsis or UTI, urinary tract infection. A lot of times we see that patient who's confused or is declining, and that urinary tract infection is an amazing assessment tool, and so many times they rally beautifully. So 6 months or less would be your time frame, and it would be even better. I behoove you to have these conversations prior to the 6 months.
Great. Thank you. Just based off of, I'll go into some of the specific questions in just a minute, but just based off of some of them, Suzanne, could you talk a little bit more about what hospice provides outside of maybe, is it just medical care, and or are there other components that hospice provides?
Yes, so important part of this whole package, in addition to the medical care, would be the spiritual side. There would be a chaplain that would visit with you if you would like. If you would like daily supportive calls from our nursing team, we would do that as well. The spiritual component is essential. Many times, if I have a religious patient, that would mean a visit by clergy. I have been known to set that up, and it is my pleasure to do that. In the end, there's bereavement, full bereavement care for your entire family for 13 months later after the loss. And, our social workers will visit as well. So it's such a teamwork, a build of compassion.